Our mini-documentary series, Hidden Cameras on the Arizona Border, we focus on the travel methods of drug runners in the Casa Grande sector of Arizona, with hidden camera and photos likely showing over $4 million worth of couriered marijuana. The rest of the film is a walking tour of Center for Immigration Studies footage showing how the cartels move their product. To set the scene, however, it is important to note that part of the trade here remains alien traffic, like these 6 truckloads of about 30 each, some even standing after walking for days in desert heat. Today, the cartels increasingly control these alien smuggling trails, so they make money off of these loads as well. The smugglers and illegals in this mini-documentary most likely travel into Arizona in the 90-mile stretch of border at the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, then move north through the U.S. military's Berry Goldwater firing range, and north again into the Bureau of Land Management's Sonora Desert, owned by the Department of Interior. Here, the desert finally meets the east-west I-8 highway, about 80 miles north of the border. Taking advantage of a lack of federal law enforcement presence on federal lands and working to avoid Border Patrol highway checkpoints, the cartels run their drug couriers, known as mules, on foot to the I-8 highway with 50-pound packs of marijuana wrapped in 2 layers of burlap or sugarcane sacks. This group of 10 was caught on thermal video at 2:48 a.m. on May 22, 2010, running to catch up with their load truck on I-8. Amongst them, they carry about $500,000 worth of marijuana, valued by the federal government at about $1,000 per pound or $50,000 per mule. Thus, for the cartels, each load's success is worth time, effort, and protection. The cartels have developed immense resiliency to targeted enforcement on both sides of the border, creating a growing national security concern. The cartels show no fear, no inhibition to use violence, operate sophisticated intelligence, and reports exist of attempted intimidation of both civilians and law enforcement in Arizona and the rest of the southwest border as well.
Police in Nogales, Arizona are also at risk. Cartels are threatening off-duty police officers. The message? Turn a blind eye to smuggling, or else.
Well, basically, they could be targeted as far as snipers on the other side of the border, or they could be assaulted by armed means from smugglers coming across the border.
Informants call the threat serious and credible. It comes 2 weeks after a group of off-duty officers on horseback stopped a load of drugs east of Nogales.
The cartel's success at infiltrating across the U.S. border is not surprising. They travel relatively unimpeded on federal land. Just this one picture includes more than 40 sack remnants, with a street value of about $900,000. All told, these photos show at least 70 burlap and sugarcane bag remnants, representing about $3.5 million. With the rising tide of concern over brazen drug cartel activity, it seemed relevant to try to expose the cartel's travel methods. Thus, my trip to Tabletop and Bighorn in the Sonora Desert in the early summer of 2010, camera in hand. My guide met me at a convenience store and gas station off of I-8 in Tabletop, where a shooting and 2 murders had recently taken place. Having spent a good amount of time placing hidden cameras and providing operational intelligence to law enforcement regarding alien smuggling and armed drug activity down these passes, he knew exactly where to take me. As we readied our gear, a lone Bureau of Land Management officer, towing his quad on the back of his truck, came and chatted for a moment. He left, and our small group was on its own. The drug couriers would load in through any time of day, so we had to be careful, I was told. It was midday, but I was not to go ahead, nor stray. We first walked around to the layup area that leads up to the gas station parking lot on I-8. The grade is steep, worn down and covered with brush, providing shade and camouflage to weary drug mules. The litter left behind here told its own story. Painkillers to help survive 50-pound packs in tremendous heat without sufficient food or water over the 80-mile trek, worn shoes, alcohol, burlap remnants, a bicycle tire. The busted tire, interestingly, was likely from the stash of about 15 bicycles behind a hill to our west, less than a mile away. My guide had found the stash a few weeks prior. Tired mules leave the bikes out of sight from the highway, but close enough so that they can push their packs on bike seats over the last hill and down into the washes that lead up to the layup area. As we retrace the steps of the mule, my guide tells me how the washes, areas where the rain digs into the desert and creates deep crevices sometimes as tall as a man, are used to camouflage the drug mules as they approach the highway. We are working our way backwards, and as we come to the last finger in the wash, we see the worn-down area where the mules descend into it. Behind us and to the east is a cell phone tower that acts as a guidepost and beacon, night or day. This is how the mules know, in part. They are near their destination. Almost a mile into this drug corridor, we come across a new sign put out by the Bureau of Land Management that tells us that as Americans, we are not safe here. Active drug and human smuggling areas. Visitors may encounter armed criminals and smuggling vehicles traveling at high rates of speed. And another sign nearby. We keep going. Amongst the beauty of mesquite bushes and this maternal cradling Sonora cactus are spent ammo. We are now entering the pass where Deputy Sheriff Louis Parole was shot in April and 2 Hispanic males were murdered in early June. The trail comes out of a wash over here. And there's some trash and stuff over there as well. Here comes one of the hundreds of trails right here. My guide describes the area as another guide accompanies me down the pass.
As we're not 10 or 15 miles from the border, we are 80 miles from the Mexican-U.S. border and only 45 miles south of Phoenix. This is where we have our game cameras up in here. We have documented people with MAC-10s, with AK-47s, and a ton of dope coming through here, all marijuana on backpacks of smugglers. Also, we've documented numerous groups of illegal aliens coming through here, all hours of the day and night.
We move west another 15 miles. My guide had recently obtained the night footage of drug couriers running to the highway from this layup area and knew this was a frequented spot. When we arrive, telltale signs of recent activity are atop this hill. It is a strategic location. There is a cell phone tower to the east and high hills overlooking I-8 on its north side. Here the cartels place eyes and ears that watch for law enforcement and then signal when the coast is clear, okaying movement to just arrived load trucks. A few yards south, we find trash, and amongst the trash, booties the drug couriers wear to hide from law enforcement.
This is carpet on the bottom and then felt on the top, and then professionally manufactured with Velcro. Well, these weren't
were
here
not
when
here
we were here
3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Capitalism is alive and well in Mexico, as far as I can see.
One size fits all.
Yeah.
It is time to move on. We have one more location to check out. My guide and I leave our team behind and head west on I-8 again towards Yuma, Arizona. Now we are in Bighorn, still on federal land, still in the Sonora Desert. This old abandoned gas station is a stone's throw from the highway. My guide explains that the good quality, ready-to-use spare tire found back behind the bushes and a mound of dirt that separates the highway from the gas station is not random, but there for a purpose.
This tire we just pulled out from behind the tree right off of the freeway, and what they do is they stash these tires sporadically through the desert, so if the load vehicle full of drugs or people have a blowout, they know where these tires are stashed, and they can just very quickly and easily pull one of these from one of their resupplies and put it back on the vehicle and be back in business and back on the road very quickly.
Concerned that perhaps there may be someone in the gas station, my guide takes a look inside. Lying in front of the station, I notice a black jug, another indicator of illegal activity. My guide picks it up and brings it to me, dumping out its contents, explaining its value to mules and smuggled aliens.
Inside the barrel cactus, it holds a lot of moisture. There's a lot of water, so when they get really dehydrated, they'll actually tear into a barrel cactus and eat it, trying to get some of the saturated moisture out of the cactus.
So what does this all mean? Barrel cactus, booties, busted bike tires, hundreds of trails, and little law enforcement in sight. What does this really mean in the context of border security and what our government is doing about it? Talking about the issue more broadly, one place to start is that Congress recently passed $600 million to help secure the southwest border, including 2,000 more Border Patrol agents. That sounds helpful and may be meaningful, except that more Border Patrol agents will not mean much if, for example, as the Drug Enforcement Agency excerpt shown at the beginning of this film state, the Arizona borders east and west of Nogales have little infrastructure to discourage illegal entry. Add to that minimal federal law enforcement activity on the millions of acres of Arizona federal land, an issue we highlighted in our Hidden Cameras 2 film, and we end up with $600 million, not necessarily stopping a whole lot of illegal activity. At the same time, Arizona struggles to deal with continuing crime-related illegal immigration and contraband. Recently, billboards mimicking those we showed in the Sonora Desert are out on Interstate 8 as well, warning of illegal activity. One recent bust in Arizona yielded $2.25 million in cocaine, heroin, and marijuana in a drive shaft. So it is curious, knowing how the cartels have always used vehicles to move drugs, why this Border Patrol checkpoint is now closed in the Tohono O'odham Reservation. The government knows that these checkpoints, especially here in Tohono O'odham, are essential to keeping mules on foot where they can be more easily tracked instead of moving north by vehicle with relative impunity for federal law enforcement intervention. So why, in the midst of all of Arizona's struggles to stay safe, would a key border checkpoint be closed? Meanwhile, about 50 miles north of Tohono O'odham, a Phoenix-based multi-agency law enforcement task force that focuses on illegal immigration-related crime says that a new method of the cartels is to recruit American citizens in Phoenix bars, flashing cash. The cartels are targeting the unemployed. Now aware that their violence breeds law enforcement attention, they seek Americans that can blend in and not alert authorities. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently said that Mexico was beginning to look like a narco-insurgency. President Obama dismissed the statement. But what is clear is that the cartels are paying attention to what U.S. law enforcement is doing operationally to counter narco-trafficking on the ground, and don't seem to care all that much about what Washington says. Much remains to be seen. For the Center for Immigration Studies, I'm Janice Kephart.